time ago, a friend of mine told me, I was in a class, a leadership class, and they said to me, you know, a goal is a dream with a deadline. Have you ever heard that? Something on that? Well, I want to tell you that the Stewardship Committee and the Finance Committee and the board decided not to set a goal for the pledge drive. We wanted to see what would happen if we didn't have a goal. I'm gobsmacked. You guys came through. I am so grateful that you have invested so much of your time and energy and your talents and your treasures to our beloved community. And if you haven't sent your pledge in yet, I know who you are. You'll be getting a call from me. And I'll be pleasant, but I'll be persistent. But thank you so much. I just wanted to let you know that I am over the moon with your generosity. Thank you.
Mike, you don't have to feel close.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
It's not very stable. I'm pretty sure you get it.
Thank you.
That's close.
Good morning and welcome, dear friends. Welcome to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. My name is Steve Bolton, and I've been asked to serve as our worship associate today. For those of you who are visually impaired, I'm a rather ordinary-looking 5'10", 76-year-old male of Northern European descent. Within our sanctuary, the sun is shining through the windows, and we have 50 loving souls in attendance. For the benefit of the hearing impaired, I would ask anyone speaking today to stand close to the mic and enunciate, but don't try and move the mic because we want to acknowledge that here at the church, we're standing in the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole peoples. We offer a warm welcome today to the guests that are with us. We would like to get to know you better and hope that you will join us following the service for coffee and refreshments. Our mission statement asserts that we're a liberal faith community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. Today we are honored to have with us the Reverend Beth Miller, who is leading the service entitled Find a Stillness. A little bit about Reverend Miller. Beth has previously served as a sole or senior minister for 3 congregations over 16 years. Additionally, she's directed the Department of Ministry and Professional Leadership at the UUA for 5 years and worked as an organization development consultant for the Mass Bay and Clara Barton districts of UA for 1 year. Since retiring in 2013, she has continued to serve several short-term contract ministries, most recently in Sarasota, Florida. Beth brings a great deal of experience to all aspects of the ministry and enjoys connecting with UU congregations and individuals here in Florida. And Beth, let me say, we're so pleased to have you with us today to lead our service. Our music today is provided by our music director, Bonnie Whitehurst, and our choir. Thank you as always for your contribution. And a warm welcome to all. Opening hymn is 83 in the Gray Hymnal.
It's good to be back, to be with you. I haven't been here for a while. I've been here several times before. Most recently, Judy tells me it was about a year and a half ago that I was last here. And as always, it's a joy to be with you. This is such a sweet congregation and a sweet place. And I'm so glad that your Pastor Patti is here today and I could meet her because I didn't know her, and it's always good to know my colleagues. So thank you. Our opening words this morning are from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. Here in this place of peace, may we find hope. Here in this place of connection, may we find life-giving community. Here in this place of rest, let the unrest of our hearts turn us toward justice. Here in this space made sacred by memories of connection, let us feel ourselves part of the new that grows from the old in the inspiring unity of years.
We light this chalice with an open heart, with resolve. We light this chalice with tears still fresh on our cheeks, yet in hope, a tiny flame we nurture. With reverence for this place, for these people, for this time. We light this chalice with all our souls longing to be who we are and who we are called to be. We are a church without a creed, but instead a covenant to which we agree. Will you join me in reading the covenant? We strive to look for and encourage the best in each other as we move toward justice, peace, and love for both ourselves and the world. And when we fall short, we will seek understanding, reconciliation, and return to covenant. Now hymn 123. Today's story is I Am Peace, a book of mindfulness by Susan Verde. There are times when I worry about what might happen next and what happened before. The thoughts in my head are like rushing water, and I feel like a boat with no anchor, being carried away, splash. I give myself a moment, I take a breath, and then I tell myself, it's all right. I feel the ground beneath my feet and steady myself and start to notice the here and the now. My thoughts begin to settle. My mind begins to clear. I am at peace. I can watch my worries gently pop and disappear. I let things go. I can say what I feel inside out loud. I know myself. I can share kindness with others. I can make a difference. Plop goes a seed. Up comes a plant. I can hug a tree and thank it for its beauty and strength. I connect with nature. I can watch the clouds make shapes against the sky. I know wonder. I can taste and smell and touch and hear and see what is all around me. I use my senses. I can feel my breath fill my whole body. I tune into me. Now the water is still. I have found my anchor, and everything is all right. I don't need to worry about before or after. I am in this moment. I am peace. Now I share my peace with others and hope that it is carried away to those who need it. And I dream. We are peace.
And now it's time for the children to go to their religious education time.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now is the time in the service when we take our offering for the work and the welfare of this church. 4 times a year, we have a special purpose collection from the Rainbow Welcome Circle, which coordinates our social justice initiatives. For the month of December, money designated for the special collection will be donated to support the Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Fund, based here in Tarpon Springs. The foundation is dedicated to respecting MLK's vision of liberty, fairness, and equality for everyone. You may make checks out to UUCTS with a memo MLK. Checks can be mailed or put in this Sunday's offering. For those present, there are labeled envelopes in the pews to donate cash. All designated donations will go to the MLK Foundation in January. For those joining us at home, you may go to our website, uutarpon.org, click the donate button, and select Social Justice, Give the Plate. Also, for visitors, this is an opportunity for you to fill out a visitor's card. I think I have one here. It's the big one. So that we may contact you. That's the bigger of the 2 cards available. On the smaller card, you may write any joy or sorrow or concern that you would like to share with the congregation. You may place these cards in the offering plate as well. You will also have an opportunity to speak yourself about a joy or concern or sorrow later in the service.
was lovely. Thank you very much. I'd love a copy of that to take back to my our music director. I sing in the choir at my church too. So, our words for reflection this morning are from the Reverend Sandra Fries. We'll share some words for reflection and then take a few moments for silence. Sandra Fries writes, "Whoever you are, wherever you are, may you know the stillness of winter and the call to love. May you see the moon silvering the night sky, and let the dark of midnight plunge you into your truest self, to a world of need, and fling you back again to a world in need of who you are. May there be familiar carols you know by heart, and new melodies to set you free. May there be feasting and frolicking, kindness and wonderment. And may there be wise people to follow a star in the east, and a child to teach us to love, and enough magic to let the imagination go wild. So let Christmas arrive with its enchantments, with its glittering, glow, and gold, to let what wants to be born break through. May the presence of the holy crowd out fear, hate, and worry, and proclaim in this moment that peace and goodwill might yet be breathed into the world, and a vow that we too can give birth to love wherever we go, whoever we are." Let us be in silence together. The reading this morning is When the Going Gets Tough by Katrina Kennison. How about to didn't know you guys were going to go. I'll wait till you get seated. You sat down. I thought you were going to stay. That's better. I like to see you. When the going gets tough, may I resist my first impulse to wade in, fix, explain, resolve, and restore. May I sit down instead. When the going gets tough, may I be quiet. May I steep for a while in stillness. When the going gets tough, may I have faith that things are unfolding as they are meant to be. May I remember that my life is what it is, not what I ask for. May I find the strength to bear it, the grace to accept it, the faith to embrace it. When the going gets tough, may I practice with what I'm given rather than wish for something else. When the going gets tough, may I assume nothing. May I not take it personally. May I opt for trust over doubt, compassion over suspicion, vulnerability over vengeance. When the going gets tough, may I open my heart before I open my mouth. That's a good one. When the going gets tough, may I be the first to apologize. May I leave it at that. May I bend with all my being toward forgiveness. When the going gets tough, may I look for a door to step through rather than a wall to hide behind. When the going gets tough, may I turn my gaze up to the sky above my head rather than down to the mess at my feet. May I count my blessings. When the going gets tough, may I pause, reach out a hand, and make the way easier for someone else. When the going gets tough, may I remember that I am not alone. May I be kind. When the going gets tough, may I choose love over fear every time. If you're like me, you arrived here at church 3 weeks ago today, still in shock from the presidential election. Indeed, the going's getting tough. There was confusion. How could this have happened? Disappointment is not a strong enough word. Perhaps devastation is more fitting. Fear, anger, and general anxiety were palpable in the Sarasota congregation that day. Some may and some may not have been surprised, but we were still all pretty much in shock. After all, he's been telling us for the past 4 years exactly who he is and exactly what he planned to do had he got elected, and he did get elected anyway. And day by day, ever since the election, we are inundated with more and more news about what's going on. We're bombarded. Yeah, his cabinet picks are newsworthy, that's important, but the relentless daily coverage of his every step, the speculation about what might come, the pundits' columns casting blame for how it could possibly have happened, it's all over the top. And since the inauguration isn't for 7 weeks, there's not much of anything we can do about it right now. Joe Biden is still the president, although you wouldn't know it to read the newspapers or watch the TV news. And today is the beginning of Advent, the season of peace on earth, goodwill to all, leading up to Christmas. Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Victoria Safford, writes about Advent. She says, "In the quiet, we remember what we are, which is not perfect, but wholly human, in both senses of the word, holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, and holy, H-O-L-Y. The whole motion of Advent, as half the world goes dark, is toward remembering and waiting, not for a single exceptional mythical child, but for the quiet conviction the silent confession that each life within all of life is a gift. Each life, including your own. For that conviction to take root, to find words, to give voice to that confession, you have to be willing to travel through darkness and silence. You have to be willing to wait. End of the quote there. So Advent is a quiet time of waiting. Regardless of our religious views, this season can be stressful at the best of times. And every year we get tips on how to reduce the stress, even as we get bombarded by pressure to make it absolutely wonderful. With the election just behind us and the inauguration coming in January, I think we need a little extra help this year to find a stillness that might quiet our anxiety about the political chaos and maybe even bolster us up for the activity to actively participate in resistance when the time comes in the new year. Michael Hyatt, author of How to Master the Essential Discipline of Stillness, gives his reasons for practicing stillness. He says, I want to maintain perspective. If I don't make time to be still, then I find myself in reactive mode, influenced by hundreds of little voices with big demands. Secondly, he says, I want to stay connected to my true self. I don't want to get confused thinking I am the image I present to the world. They are related, of course, but I want to live from the inside out. I want more internal margin in my life. By margin, Hyatt means space, internal space. He says, I want internal margin, more room to notice what matters most and to be thankful for it. I can too easily lose perspective and get stuck in what they call doom scrolling. Do you doom scroll, some of you? Clicking on article after article about all the awful things that are going to happen and feeling like our country is, well, doomed. Doomed to become an autocracy where human rights are null and void for immigrants, trans and gay people, minorities, and anyone who opposes the autocrat in chief. A place where white supremacy and patriarchy are openly affirmed and promoted. But we've been here before, you know, and we resisted and limited the impact of the first Trump administration. While he was able to push through many of his initiatives with the help of his party and through executive actions and some of the states and other political actors, who played a vital role in preventing or limiting some of his more controversial and polarizing proposals. We're going to have to fight even harder this time because he has a well-organized backing from the Heritage Foundation. He's already going down the list on Project 2025, and a more conservative Supreme Court. But we will do the best we can to resist. We have to, but not yet. Resistance comes once the term begins and there are specific issues to confront. There are things that we can grab hold of and do. For now, remembering the larger perspective, staying connected to our true selves and having the internal space to notice what's important and to be thankful for it will help us find stillness in this Advent season and help us through, carry us through. I often listen to a podcast by Tara Brach. She's a psychologist and a Western Buddhist teacher and the founder of the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, D.C. Her podcasts are really good. Some of them are meditations and some of them are what they call Dharma talks in Buddhism.
Things were happening.
What? What was that?
Well, that's the first time that came on.
Oh, okay. Welcome, person on Zoom. I'm glad you're there. I wish I could see you too. I often listen to Tara Brach's broadcast, and she talks about gratitude this week, like the day after Thanksgiving, as a balm to the angst many of us are feeling as we enter the holidays and await the changes that will
You're
wash
having
in
a lot of
after the
trouble with it.
inauguration. Now is the perfect time to develop a gratitude practice if you don't already have one, or to amp it up if you do, because we will need it in the months and years ahead. She started out this podcast with a story told by a mid-20th century American historian, journalist, and author named James Agee. During the Great Depression, he encountered an impoverished elderly woman in the hollows of Appalachia who was living in this tiny shack with dirt floors, no heat, no plumbing. So Aggie, in conversation, finally asked her, well, what would you do if someone came along and gave you money to help you out? She's rocking in her chair, and she thought for a moment, and she shook her head, and she said, well, I guess I would give it to the poor. Tara Brock comments, what struck me so much about this is it really has within it one of the greatest of the spiritual teachings about awakening and true happiness. Our life is not about what's happening, but about how we are relating to it. Whether or not we are happy, whether or not we are feeling our hearts are open, depends on how we are relating to what's happening, not on what's happening. That's a hard one to master, but it's true, I think. She also talked about Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, whom she calls a modern-day bodhisattva, an enlightened person in Buddhist terms. If you haven't seen the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood starring Tom Hanks, I see nods, many of you have seen that movie. I highly recommend it. Here's what Mr. Rogers said that she quoted in that piece. I believe that appreciation is a holy thing, that when we look for what's best in the person we happen to be with at the moment, we are doing what God does. So in loving and appreciating our neighbor, we are participating in something truly sacred, in appreciating our neighbor, in appreciating each other, in appreciating nature. And she mentioned a movie critic who said, people took to the movie immediately as if applying a Band-Aid to a wound, to a wounded psyche. And she says, I was thinking about that, and what seems so important about the movie is that we love goodness. We really love goodness. That's who we are, people. We're people who love goodness as Unitarian Universalists. And we are hurting and we are grieving because our society feels so far from the values that matter to us, so far from the care and the presence and the respect that matters to our hearts. So there is grieving. The response is, can we open our own hearts? Can we open our hearts? You know, the truth is that most of us here in this room today, we're going to be fine. We could just shut out the rest of the world, the unrest, the polarization, the very real threat to those who are vulnerable in our society, and enjoy the safety of our own relatively privileged lives. That's who we generally are. I was at dinner last night with a group, and we were talking about the election, and one of the guests said she was going to just drop out for the next 4 years. She wasn't going to read the news, watch news on television, or get involved in all of this mess that's going on. And I can understand that. I really can understand that. But then we love goodness. We love goodness. Not superficial goody two-shoes goodness, but that deeper kind of goodness that our Unitarian Universalist principles and values call us to. Caring for others and adding our weight to the justice side of the scale in whatever ways we are able. We are called to participate in building up the good, and we need open hearts and strong psyches to do that. One pathway is through gratitude and appreciation, noticing the goodness we love and pausing for gratitude. If we want to stop the negative chatter on our heads about what's happening in the world and how we relate to it, we need to change our focus from what's wrong to what's worthy of our gratitude, not to escape from what's wrong, but to be able to participate in making it better, to have the strength, the fortitude to do our part to make it better. And it isn't easy. I can so easily get caught up in perseverating about stuff that worries me, and a once and done appreciation of something nice isn't enough to stop that chatter in my own heart and head. I need to be more intentional and more disciplined about it. Gratitude is a spiritual practice with spiritual purpose, and there's a bit of a paradox in here. Practicing gratitude is really very self-centered. The object of our gratitude or appreciation, usually the object has no idea that we're feeling it, and it has no impact on the other or the thing that we're appreciating and being grateful for. But it does impact us. It builds us up in a variety of ways. Research on gratitude as a spiritual practice highlights a wide range of psychological, emotional, and even physical benefits. These findings suggest that integrating gratitude into a daily spiritual practice can reduce depression and anxiety, increase satisfaction with one's life, enhance our social bonds, increase our empathy and decrease resentment, promote better sleep, I need that one, help us manage stress, increase optimism, cultivate humility, and help us develop an abundance perspective. That's a lot. That's a lot of good stuff from being grateful. And with what we're facing, we need all the help we can get to stay grounded, open-hearted, and strong. The paradox then is that we get all these benefits from gratitude, which strengthen and enhance our well-being, but they're not just for us. The larger purpose is to use these benefits to serve the greater good, because we love the good. I have to admit that although I consider myself a relatively grateful person, someone who appreciates the positive and doesn't dwell too much on the negative, I have not been very disciplined about this in my life. They say we preachers frequently preach the sermons we need to hear, and I need to hear this one. In thinking about it and doing the reading and preparation, I'm moved to become more intentional and consistent in practicing gratitude. There are many ways to do it. Daily journaling is probably the most common way. Sharing our gratitude with someone else is another way. I have a Facebook friend, another minister colleague, who has posted a brief essay on 3 things she is grateful for each day for more than 2 years. And it's made a huge difference in her life. She talks about that once in a while. I exchange texts each morning with a friend just to say good morning and make sure we're each up and okay. And I plan to start sharing one thing I'm grateful for with her each day going forward. Now, another thing I learned from Tara Brock about developing a solid gratitude practice is that it needs to be remembered to have the desired outcome. For example, you bring to mind something you're grateful for, like maybe a person in your life or the beauty of some piece of art or nature that you're seeing. It's important to stop and hold that thought for a while, not to just go on. And why is this? Because our implicit memory takes in the bad stuff that is difficult and negative and remembers it for a really long time. But the positive feelings aren't as sticky. They don't stick so well. She didn't say why this is true, but it makes sense that we would more readily remember the negative in order to be able to overcome it or to avoid it in the future. But the positive things we kind of take for granted. They're there. They're secure in some way or another. So in order to remember gratitude, to have it become a trait, something that is really a part of us, when we feel grateful, we need to stay with that feeling for 15 to 30 seconds. That's not very long, but we usually don't do that. We don't stop and dwell on what we're grateful for 15 to 30 seconds. At least I don't. I move on down the road. She calls this installing the trait. Installing the trait. Spending time to write it down, Sharing it with a friend or just meditating on it for a while installs the trait, and it helps us to develop the habit of the spiritual practice. Developing and maintaining a larger perspective on where we are and practicing gratitude can help us find stillness as we enter Advent and await not only Christmas and Hanukkah and the New Year, but also the inauguration of our new president. But we need something else as well. We need a caring community of love and support where we can share what we're feeling and be who we truly are. And that's what you have here. I told a friend at my church that I would be here speaking for you today and what I was planning to talk about, and he sent me a link to an op-ed piece in the Washington Post this past Wednesday entitled, "Don't Doom Scroll About Trump, Do These 5 Things Instead," by Perry Bacon Jr. The number 2 of his 5 findings, were join a Unitarian Universalist congregation in the Washington Post in an op-ed piece. Yay! Just this past Wednesday. I'm going to wrap this sermon up with what he wrote about that. He wrote about the join a Unitarian Universalist part. I'm not going to read his whole essay. If you're part of a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or other religious group that meets regularly and engages politically, skip this. But there is a growing number of Americans, particularly on the left, who are religiously unaffiliated and not regularly congregating with people who share their values. They should consider the Unitarian Universalists. I recently started regularly attending a UU service in Louisville. I think he lives in Louisville, Kentucky. It's much more political than the Christian churches I have previously been a member of. That turned me off at first. Since politics is essentially my job, I try, usually unsuccessfully, to avoid discussions of elections and government in my off hours. And I was leery of a church whose openly liberal values would clearly turn off Trump supporters and therefore ensure a congregation that didn't include very many Republicans. But before the election, church members engaged in politics in a particular way, encouraging congregants to go canvassing in opposition to a proposed constitutional amendment here to create a school voucher program. It failed, he says. So at least on Sundays, I was in a community of people working on a concrete, discrete local issue, as opposed to nervously speculating about Vice President Kamala Harris's poll numbers. Post-election, I was relieved to be in a space where we openly discussed shared values and ideals we felt had been rejected by America in electing Trump. Good press for us, eh? I'm so glad that Perry Bacon has found a place in that congregation that supports his values and helps him to be his authentic self. I'm very glad for you for having this congregation of beloveds that can support one another and make a difference in your world here and the larger world. And I'm very grateful to be a part of the Sarasota UU congregation. May we all stay connected to our church communities and make a special effort to welcome any who might follow Mr. Bacon's recommendations and choose us. So may it be. Amen. I think we have a hymn now, huh?
In this hymn, we will be doing verses 1 and 2. And the first section of the hymn is repeated. There's a big repeat sign there before you go on to the rest of the song. So just the autumn verse and the winter verse.
Summertime has turned the star.
Our closing words, Anchors of Calm by Scott Taylor. When the winds of your daring days begin to swirl, may you find your breath. May you remember that still point inside that is always waiting to welcome you back home. And from that place of sacred peace, may you be an anchor of calm for those who need it as much as you do. Go in peace. Go in love. Amen.
We hope you found meaning in today's service. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we meet again. Each week when we gather to worship, we set aside time to honor and share the joys and sorrows and concerns of those of our personal lives within our community. At this time, we will share those that have written, and then we will allow time for people attending via Zoom, and then finally those in person to come and use the microphone if you wish. Were there any cards in the that were submitted?